Let's stay with us now and speak to Mervyn Abrahams, who is the program coordinator for the Pietermaritzburg Economic Justice and Dignity Group. Mervyn, thank you so much for your time this evening. I mean, food inflation low, and of course, listening to what Stats SA have to say, it does sound like it's good news for some, but does it mean households now have a bit more cash to go around?
So good evening, and good evening to all your viewers. And it is true that all the statistics are showing that food prices are coming down. Our index came down by about 1.5% over the last, and that takes our annual inflation rate on our basket of 44 very basic foods that most low-income households purchase to 3.9%, even lower than that of Stats SA. However, at the same time we are seeing food prices coming down, we are seeing administered prices increasing above CPI level. There I mean things like electricity, fuel, etc. So the consumer does not feel as if inflation is decreasing, because they continue to have to spend this enormous amount of money on other essential goods, that it seems as if the purse continues to be strained.
And I suppose, I mean, it impacts food choices. At the same time, it also still impacts, you know, the freedom to then be able to also at least have a bit more of a saving.
So essentially what it has meant is that households continue to suffer very high unaffordability. This unaffordability crisis continues, because we really have to look at what do most of the low-income consumers spend their money on. And they spend their money on four things. They spend their money on transport, on electricity, on debt servicing, and on food. The only one of those four that have shown a marked decrease has been food. So in a sense, these others have continued to increase, taking whatever savings would have come from food now goes towards paying increased electricity tariffs or increased transport costs. And that is where most consumers find themselves today.
And I suppose then it means they now have to make difficult choices, particularly when they go to the grocery store.
So yes, we have seen that most households are making those difficult choices. So many households tell us that the days of having 3 full meals a day are long time over. So people are cutting back on what they are eating. They are much more savvy in how they shop. So, for instance, most women tell us they would go to 3 or 4 stores, look for the specials in one store, look for the specials in the other. But we can well imagine the amount of time that take and the pressure that put, particularly on women. So there's a gender dimension to this household affordability crisis that South African households face at the moment.
And we talk about that gender dimension. I wonder then, how much pressure does it also continue, you know, to put on the women, especially when it comes to even running the household and also being able to go to work and also then being able to, you know, carry some of the burdens that they deal with on a daily basis?
So we have said, for instance, that particularly women, because of our patriarchal system, women are expected to provide the food, cook the food, etc. So they're at the cutting edge of these increases. And they were particularly hard hit by the Eskom increases because it has made storing food and cooking food so much more expensive. And most of the savings are now being channeled towards electricity. So really we have to begin to think, how do we bring down administered prices? And we were very happy to hear that the president in his opening of parliament has mentioned that the state is trying to review these administered prices.
So when then you look at, for example, the food basket, the cost right now, what does it tell us, for example, in some, you know, when you think about the staples and, you know, the difference in pricing, especially in some of the areas?
So the cost of our basket of 44 very basic foods now stand at 5,252 rand. So that is way above the national minimum wage. And when we look at, for instance, the core foods that women tell us they must buy every month, those core foods now stand at 2,844 rand. Now that is a decrease on the previous months. Prices have come down. The problem is that incomes are too low and other household essentials are increasing way above the decreases in food prices. So for an ordinary consumer, it doesn't feel that inflation is coming down. We can just look, for instance, at the national minimum wage, for instance. So the national minimum wage for the month of June would have brought in something in the region of 4,200 rand. The expenditure on transport would have come to, according to our research, to something like 1,520. 350 kilowatts of prepaid electricity would be 906. That is 2,426 rand just on those two items, leaving 1,765 left for all the other household expenditures. Now, if we had to spend all of that on food, then in reality, for a household of four, that will be 441 rand per person per month, while the food poverty line is standing at 760 rand. So that shows the depth of this affordability crisis. And even though food prices have come down, it does not feel like that for the ordinary consumer.
Thank you so much for breaking it down for us. That was Mervyn Abrahams, who is the program coordinator for the Pietermaritzburg Economic Justice and Dignity Group.